it's too easy to believe that we're reading about things that are happening somewhere else. What we're reading about, when we read Ray Kurzweil, when we read Bill Joy, is what we're dealing with right here. This is our thing. This is what we're doing. And I'm not talking about working with computers. I'm talking about trying to figure out what issues like artificial intelligence mean to us in today's society. So, many of you will have heard of the iWriter project. I'm not going to show the video. It's been shown too many times here. But this is one application of technology that Zach Lieberman has developed to, in this case, working with a paralyzed graffiti writer, where their eye movement is tracked, and that is put into the computer, allowing them to draw using their eyes. This is a great art project. It's, you know, if you haven't looked up iWriter on the web, they've got their own site and everything. This was done by 6 or 7 DT students 3-4 years ago, I don't know. It's still ongoing now. But go look at it, look at the video. It's very touching. But what's most interesting is it was one of these projects that crossed over to go beyond art. It wasn't just an art project. Yes, the subject here, who's a graffiti writer, was an artist, and yes, it's very quick to say, it's easy to say, hey, graffiti, you know, counterculture, alternative, all this. But this is a great example of designers and artists working with technology where things are now happening with the iWriter, where it's being used, in this case, with Lou Gehrig's disease. The eyes are the last motor function you have, and so it allows these people to communicate. And it's being replicated all over the world now. The beauty is it's free, it's open source. They made a decision early on that they weren't going to try to capitalize on it. And it's a great example of exactly the type of thing that was so difficult in early artificial intelligence. The pattern recognition, the vision tracking, etc. And it's available to all of us now. And they're doing it on the same laptops that you're taking notes on or watching videos on while I talk or whatever. Another example of this, and this is where we'll see if it's in the file, is a video that Zach and a number of DT students did just a couple of years ago. And it's a music video. It used to be one of the more common medium. You'd get students coming and saying, I'm going to do a music video. But the thing before I play this is that this is all real time. This is not, there's no post-production special effects on this.
I am a lion.
So it's really easy on these things. I'm not saying it's easy to do this stuff, but it's really easy to look at this stuff and say, oh, that's art, or oh, that's, you know, not important in terms of solving social problems. That's simply not true. And what part of your responsibility is as you evaluate the technologies around you is really to understand where are the applications. And that's something that Zach has done really well. He's just opening a lab up on the 10th floor in what we're describing loosely as assistive technology. And the whole point here is to apply, I'm sorry, the 12th floor at 6 East 16th Street, where you all live. I think all of you live there. All these programs have some affiliation with the 12th floor, right? Design Studies does too. There, you guys are kind of over there. Okay, I woke up the Design Studies people, that's good. Good, but new lab, assistive technology, how do we help people who need help using technology? And it could mean a lot of different things. Another example I'd love to show that I showed last year is a robotic example. It's a little old now, it's about 10 years old, but it still gets laughs and a little bit of amazement from people, and I want to play through this. And this is another example of where artificial intelligence has put us in a realm right now where we weren't even thinking about these things in the mid-90s when we pulled design and technology out of a bag, and it's what places additional technology, or additional responsibility on you to really think about these issues. every single one of these modules are identical, right? And this is unprogrammed. This is all just simply responsive behavior. So once again, we're building things now with technology that 15, 20 years ago weren't even thinking of. How do we apply it? This is the lecture today, and this is really where I'm going to focus on in terms of the readings that I've asked you to do. That's me being honest. This is my wife. I've got to show this and give her credit for giving me ideas all the time, but some of you will study with my wife who teaches thesis writing in NF-ADT and has been forever. And she can always give you the inside scoop on me, which is not always that flattering. But the reason she's up here is because over the years I've watched her bring home these thesis documents that the DT students do. And this is a typical pile. And they're pretty dense. I mean, I don't know what the current requirements are for thesis, but you don't want to think about it too much. You got to do a lot of writing when you're coming out of these grad programs. It doesn't matter whether you're in DT or Trans-D or design studies. You're going to end up doing a lot of research and writing. And one evening, this was a long time ago, probably 10 years ago, Louisa was sitting with a pile like this on her desk. This is a computer that I have long since forgotten about, which dates the picture for me. But, and she was just really pissed off. She was just, this just sucks. I was like, thought she was making a blanket damnation of all the pile of stuff. She wasn't. We got into a long talk about what's wrong. And she said, well, you know, as I read through these documents, these students, and this would never happen for any of you. I'm certain of that now. It's partly because of this lecture. It's never happened to you. These students don't seem to have really thought out what they're trying to do with technology. And she used a very interesting word, which stuck with me. It was gratuitous. They believe that because they're in a program called Design and Technology, they need to be doing something with technology. But they haven't really thought about its importance to them. They haven't really thought about what they want to do with it. And in many instances, they would be much better off not working with technology at all. Which is, of course, kind of a controversial statement to make about a large graduate program with technology at the center. But I think there was a lot of truth to it. And it really prompted me to think, and I went in and I gave a lecture a week later that was incredibly controversial. The one time I literally had people upset after the lecture, and it was because I brought this up. And one of the things I said to the people, it was a DT crew, was it may be that some of you don't belong in this program. When you think this through, it may be that some of you don't belong in this program. Well, that's not a great way to be popular as a professor. I mean, everyone wants to believe that they've made the right decision about the programs they've entered. But I actually think it took a certain courage for me to get up in front of students and say that. And I actually think there's been tremendous evolution since then, this lecture being one result of it, in terms of really getting down and digging down into the underlying issues we have and looking at broader social issues. But in this case, this word really stuck to me, and it's really the center of what I'm talking about when I say technology and honesty. You know, I think we all talk about honesty. I don't think any of us are as honest as we'd like to be. I think we generally are better for the world around us the more honest we are. I think being honest with ourselves takes a lot of courage. It means admitting things about yourself that are sometimes not great. It means making hard decisions sometimes about people around you, about things you're engaged with, etc. I like to see myself as an honest person, but I'm probably a 5 on a scale of 10. That means there's a lot of me that's not honest, and I've really thought a lot about this word along with gratuitous, because I think one of the biggest problems in schools like Parsons is that people aren't honest about what they're interested in, and they do things and they engage in projects for the wrong reasons. They come to school for the wrong reasons. I think it's an epidemic, or it's endemic, depending on how you want to look at it. I think what this forces them to do is things like go to professors and say, I don't understand the assignment, explain it again, instead of really making the assignment their own. And once again, I know you guys are grad students and I don't mean to preach to you like you're kindergartners, but it's amazing to me how much baggage we all carry with us about what we really want to do and who we really are. In this case, you know, establishing a relationship with technology to me in this world, in this artificial world, really means establishing your relationship with the world itself, not just with the technology. And we're not talking about just technology as a mediator. It's more, as Clive has noted very eloquently, that everything around us is artificial, and in that sense, everything is technology. It's why I start with the slide about DNA and the genome, because we're not just talking about what I happen to be doing with this computer anymore. The computers are right in the middle of it, but it's really a broader question of what does artificial mean? And to me, artificial suggests that virtually everything around us is technology. When DT was founded in the mid-90s, we weren't having these conversations. We were all obsessed with the possibilities of computers. It was a very optimistic, very positive time. I'm not sure the world was a better place, but I think there was probably a lot more belief that things were on the up and up. I think the world is no more complicated now. I would say the world is a more negative place now. And one of the things that I've already said is that I'm not sure a lot of these conversations would have been possible or would have been well received. And I'm not suggesting you're receiving me well, but well received in the late 90s because the students were more narrowly focused. Computers themselves, as we accessed them, was a much newer concept. And we were still just getting used to the fact that we actually had access to computers. Social networks didn't exist. For most people, networks didn't exist at all. So many of the things that have very direct social implication today weren't there. The web was brand new. It was very, very exciting. It still is. But totally, we couldn't have had this conversation then. I would literally have been booed off the stage because I wasn't talking about something else. I just sent this to you. I'm always telling people to read The Economist. Some give me a hard time and say I don't like to read The Economist. This just came in your email, the Technology Quarterly. Browse it, browse the topics, and to a certain extent I'm using this as an example of where I'm extending technology beyond just computation. There are probably a dozen articles in this. I would say to all of you, you probably should read The Economist. How many people here actually read The Economist? Not enough. And I own no stock in The Economist. As a magazine, it's not perfect. It's very opinionated. But it does, from my point of view, even more than the New York Times, which can be very American and even New York-centric, The Economist provides a very interesting worldview in a way that I can't fathom sometimes, and it really helps me. And it also puts these things out, the Technology Quarterlies and other inserts that you will find you gain a lot of information. If you don't want to go out and buy a copy, fine, go to their online site and just read a few articles. You'll very quickly get an idea of how they operate, and you'll either like it or not. And as I say, I've had a lot of people throw it back at me and say, I don't like The Economist, but as a resource, and this was just demonstrated by probably the 1/8 of the crowd who raised their hands, people are not familiar enough with it. There are not a lot of decent print magazines out there anymore. So today you're already getting the idea that this lecture ends up being a lot of snapshots and references. I'm not going to dissect the readings I've given you. I've given you readings from 4 important thinkers of our day. I'm going to go over each one, kind of who they are, and certainly you'll follow through with some of this in recitations, but there's not a single message to gather from these thinkers. I'm going to spend the rest of the time kind of touching upon each one in different ways, and it gives you kind of my perspective. Before I start, though, I'm going to touch upon one other thinker who I didn't give you a reading from, and some of you will be familiar with him. The point here is that I can't send out everything for reading, and Howard Gardner, who I'm about to talk about, is someone who I think shakes things up as we all look at the world around us. Certainly did for me when I first discovered his work, perhaps 20 years ago. He's an educational psychologist.